Hello, one more time. For this second hair image, the blowing hair image, I'm gonna start with an already retouched skin. In fact, this is the original layer. I chose it because of the crop. I really like the crop, but for the main image, I like this pose and this face and this hair. So what I did was I just pasted it on top and masked it, and then I did some dodging of the shadows to blend it better. I did some color correction on the face, and then I split the image and did some healing. Let's go a little closer. And also I did some dodging and burning. Most of the work, as you can see, has been done in the dodge and burn curves. And then I did some work on the eyes, and I drew in some eyelashes. Then, I don't know if you remember from the extras, the trick with multiplying and using shadow and highlights. I used this in really low opacity. This is just 20% opacity to enhance the shadows a little bit. This was two-tone, so I just used 20. There we go. And this, all of this work is my working file now. So before I go in and start adding pieces of hair that I have a lot of different images to do that from, I want to show you how to get different color in the hair, because a lot of people ask me how to get blonde hair or red hair from a brunette or the other way around. Well, there is actually no magic trick to do this. It's just color adjustments and curves to get to the desired point. But I'm gonna show you anyway how I would do it. So the first thing I need to do is I'm gonna separate the hair from the background and the body and the hair and the face. So to do that, to make the mask, I'm gonna use channels because that's the faster and more accurate way to create a mask, especially for hair. Every complicated mask can be done through channels and it's a lot easier and faster. So let's do that. Let's go to channels, and I'm gonna choose the blue channel because it's usually the one with more contrast between hair and background. And to increase that contrast, I'm gonna use levels. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna duplicate the blue channel because I'm not gonna do anything directly on the channel. I'm gonna paint in my blue copy. I'm gonna paint over the light hairs because when I increase the contrast, I'm gonna lose a lot of these white hairs, and that's not the intention. So I'm just simply going to paint over the light hair. This way, when I increase the contrast, I won't have a problem with the highlights. I'm trying to do it fast. Okay. And now another thing that I'm going to do before going to levels is I'm going to sharpen this channel so I can get even more contrast out of the little hairs. There we go. I'm going to use a wide radius. And now I'm going to do that again, but instead of using a wide radius, I'm going to use a lower radius so I can get really like the tiny hairs. There we go. Now I'm going to do the painting over the highlights again because now I have more highlights. There we go. And now I'm going to go to, oh, there, this part over here might give me some problems. There. And now I'm gonna go to levels and I'm gonna push the lights and the shadows. So I'm making the darks darker and the lights lighter. There we go. I'm gonna paint with white everything that isn't here. And then I can adjust these borders. I'm gonna do that once the mask is done. For now, I'm just gonna remove the main skin, like the most obvious. There we go. Then once I have the mask ready, I can fix the little things. I'm not gonna go further. The important thing when you're creating a mask is that you should know that you can use any tool available in Photoshop to make the mask more precise. So that's why I'm using the dodge tool to dodge the highlights. And there we go. So I want to affect the shadows of the hair. And now I'm going to use for midtones to make it a little softer. There we go. Again, to highlights. You can also increase the contrast. Okay. There we go. Now we have a pretty decent hair mask. I'm gonna just make this darker. Now I can increase the levels. I can increase the contrast through levels a little bit more. There we go. And now I'm gonna select my copy of the blue channel. I'm gonna go to layers and I'm gonna create a curve layer adjustment, and it's gonna have the mask already there. So let's go back to channels and to RGB. I'm gonna delete my blue copy because I already have the mask done. Inverted, I need to invert the mask. There we go. Now everything I do will be applied only on this mask and not the rest of the image. I'm gonna make this darker. There we go. Okay. And now to reveal the mask or just see the content of the mask, I'm clicking Alt or Option in a Mac so I can see just the mask. And now I can adjust just the hair. Now here's what I was talking about that I was going to fix later. I'm gonna make the mask perfect or near to perfect. I'm gonna push the edges of the mask. There we go. Or just soften them. There we go. Also here I'm gonna push this. And here. I'm just painting black on the mask so it doesn't, anything I do to the hair is gonna apply to the rest. Okay, and I'm gonna turn it back. There we go. So let's say I wanted to turn this hair blonde. It would be nearly impossible because I don't have enough detail in the shadows and blonde hair is really, really bright. But I'm gonna show you how close we can get to a lighter hair tone. So I already have the curves. So in my curve layer, I'm gonna push the shadows and the highlights into the brighter side without losing definition. So I can get more detail in the shadows. And now I'm gonna change the color. I'm gonna choose selective color. So I'm gonna create a new layer adjustment, selective color. And I'm gonna drag my mask, clicking Alt or Option in a Mac and replace it. So everything I do is gonna be applied on the hair. So I'm gonna choose the blocks and I'm gonna add yellow and magenta so it's not green, and I'm gonna decrease the blacks of the blacks, and in the neutrals I'm gonna decrease the cyan and I'm gonna increase the yellow. So now we have something closer to brown, to blonde. I'm gonna fix my masking a little bit. With low opacity and black. I'm gonna paint over the mask over here. There we go. And also in the curves just here because it's too light for the sideburns, and also here. There we go. And now because it's a little bit greenish still, I'm gonna do another curve, and this time I'm gonna push the highlights even more. There we go. And I'm gonna add a little blue in the highlights. There we go. And now I'm gonna invert this and selecting my mask from the other mask, I'm gonna just paint this new adjustment on my mask in the highlights with white. There we go. I don't want this over the entire hair, just parts of it. So the highlights have a different tone. There we go. And now it's looking a little pinkish, so I'm gonna turn the red down. Not so much. There we go. And I think that maybe a little more contrast might help. There we go. And one more adjustment to put the saturation down. So let's use our original mask and drag it. And there we go. In the hue saturation, I'm gonna push the tones down. There we go. And that's the closer we can get to something like blonde. Maybe some color balance to remove the green. But as you can see, there's no magic trick to go from brunette to blonde. It's a lot of adjustment layers. There we go. Let's drag our mask again, Alt and drag. And in the midtones, a little blue. The highlights, a little blue. There we go. So it's a lot of adjustment layers using the correct masking to get to the tone we want. That's a pretty big change either way. And I mean, like you do, like this really, like this dark blonde or light brunette, you can do any kind of color you want. I mean, like redhead, and you can, instead of just using normal, you can use blending modes to to make it less. This is the contrast, and the first one is the one that's, yeah, because the red is not as bright, so that's why we don't need the first adjustment, the curve adjustment. So if you want it red, then you change all the instead of going to blue and yellow, you go to red and yellow. Okay. But anyway, as long as you have a good mask, then everything else is done through adjustment layers and curves and all your favorite methods of changing colors all around, but just applying them to hair. And remember, the things to take into account when changing hair tones is that shadows in blonde hair is never really deep. So if you have a deep shadow, it's very hard to get to blonde. Redheads usually have the same tone, the same luminosity as brown, but not if you want really light redhead, like orange, like peach orange. Then you need the same settings as the blonde. But there is no formula to get to the desired tone because it depends on the image you're working on. But since I like brunette, I'm just gonna call this playing with hair tone, and I'm gonna hide that underneath my working file because I want her as a brunette. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going for the wow effect in the hair, like hair blowing everywhere. And it's very hard to get in camera because, well, it's really hard to get the right pose and the right lighting and the hair flowing exactly where we want it. So that's why I have loads of different images to take hair from. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take different hair from different parts of the image and different images all together, like this one. This is really different image, same model, but different lighting. And okay, so in a working file, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add hair on this side, and I'm going to use this one. So let's cut and paste here. Let's go to our regular view mode, and now I'm going to put down the opacity to see what I'm doing. The same steps as I did on the other hair image, and now I'm going to transform to get it to where I want. And I'm going to check for this, the edges. I want the edges to match. I want some black here and this. I'm gonna do just like this, and then I'm gonna use warp, the warp tool, to push this inside. So I won't change this. I still have the black here, but I want to hide this little hairies over there. And I'm checking this. Let's go a little closer. Oh, there's a blonde. Okay, here. I'm checking this. The edge needs to match the other edge. There we go. Okay. Now that I like it, I click enter. I'm gonna see how it looks. Always check that it doesn't look too blurry for all the transformation. Okay, I mean you can get away with a little blurry because it's well, it's flowing, so it doesn't need to be completely in focus, but you don't want it to look stretched. So now that we have this, we have to mask out what we don't want. So we need, there we go, we need a path. I'm gonna create a path of my main subject. She has very nice boobs. And just click, drag. So the image has a very clean edge, and I want to keep that. That's why I'm using the path, the pen tool. There we go. Now when I'm done with the path, I'm gonna use it to mask out the face and the body from my new hair. The hair color doesn't really match completely, so I'm gonna have to fix that too, and then extract the background format. Interesting. I'm gonna do a lot of things. I'm gonna leave the eyelashes outside of my main selection. Remember how I did it in the beauty image? There we go. Then this, I'm gonna see what I keep and what I leave out. So, but for now, this is my main path. I'm gonna select it, and I'm gonna use it to paint black over my mask of my new layer in 100% opacity, or I'm gonna be here until tomorrow. There we go. So now we have the hair placed. Let's remove the selection and let's go and work on the mask here. Way too big. go. Try and get to this tone to match this tone. No, no. Okay, let's fix the edges of the mask. With the smooch tool, just I always use the smooch tool to smooth out edges of masks. It gives me a lot of control to where I want it soft and where I want it really hard. Another thing that you have to think when you're doing like composite is how is this change going to affect the image? Like, is it real that the side of the right of the camera right of the face is so bright if it has hair? So maybe I need to fix that. Maybe it works, but it's all things you need to take into account when doing composite work. Okay, let's bring our eyelashes. I drop the opacity so I could push the eyelashes from the mask, and without sampling all layers, I'm just gonna push the eyelashes out of the mask, and if it doesn't look good, then I'm just gonna draw them like I did before. So let's see. Okay, didn't work. So I'm just gonna draw them. Oh, sampling all layers. There we go. But this kind of details are really, really important because that's what makes or breaks the image and the image credibility. I mean, if the eyelashes just stop, then it's not gonna look real. Okay. Now, I'm gonna unlink the selection, the mask and the layer because I want to keep the mask, this mask, but I want to move the hair to see how far I can take it, this part, to hide the little hairs. So I have to clone as little as possible. That's better. And since I have the mask unlinked, then I'm just moving the layer underneath the mask and not the mask. The mask remains the same. Okay, very good. So I need to increase the contrast of this hair to match this one and to change the tones. So I'm gonna do that right here. Just push the shadows. It's too saturated, and the tone. could use a little more cyan. I'm doing all this directly on the layer because it's like a small part of the image, and I don't want extra adjustment layers that I don't need because I'm not going to be adjusting this later, making it cooler but not reddish. Okay, let's go. That blends good. Now I need to extract my background from the new hair to blend my new hair with the old background. So again, I'm going to use the channels. I'm going to do exactly the same that I did before. I'm going to duplicate the blue channel to create a mask. And I'm going to increase the contrast between the hair and the background. I'm going to use curves this time. And levels. Before I go on, I'm going to make this lighter. Just because it's too dark, it's going to give me problems. There we go. As close as I can get to white. It's gonna be better. I'm gonna increase the contrast again. I'm gonna sharpen this to get more definition out of the hair. There we go. And I'm gonna dodge some of it. Some more. There we go. And a little bit more levels. There we go. Okay. And now I'm gonna create, there we go. I'm gonna use this channel. I'm gonna select it and I'm gonna use that to erase the new background from my new hair. But I'm not gonna erase it all because that would look fake. So I'm just gonna paint black at 100% in the edges. There we go. And for this part, I'm gonna use a low opacity until it looks right. But I'm not gonna erase it completely, otherwise it will look fake. There we go. So now that I have this, I'm gonna blur this mask a little bit. That's too much. There we go. And now the rest, I can fix it with a curve. So I'm gonna create a curve. That lightens. There we go. I'm gonna hide it. And I'm gonna paint inside with white. There we go, to lighten further, to make it blend perfectly. A little bit over here too. That is too much. And I'm thinking 100% is too much. Okay, and I'm gonna link this to the layer underneath. And now I have my new hair on the right. So let's see before and after. Let's see a closer. There we go. Then we're gonna remove those tiny hairs like with regular cloning in darken mode, but I'm gonna do that later. Now another thing that I want to do is I'm gonna select the hair, I'm gonna select inverse, and now that I remember, I'm gonna create a curve to darken this side of the face because it doesn't look real now. So I'm gonna, this is not the right, delete, just new adjustment, hide all. There we go. And now I'm gonna select this. I'm gonna select inverse. I'm gonna make it grow like 2 points. And now I'm gonna paint my darkness into my face because now I have hair there in the back, so it can't be that bright. There we go. I think I went way too far, so I'm gonna mask out my nose with 100. There we go. And the eye, I don't want the darkest in the eye or the lips. There we go. Just on the edge. There we go. So let's see before and after our new hair. Very good. And now we're gonna add all the hair in the left and replace any hair that we don't like. So let's go back to all files. This one is nice. I'm gonna use that one. Cut. And paste. There we go. We place it. And we put down the opacity and we transform it. This time we need to notice the highlights, so that's what I'm going to pay attention to. And I'm gonna warp it. Let's go closer. Let's look for that highlight. Make the highlight fit. I'm gonna click enter. Then I'm gonna transform it a bit further. Transform, warp again. Because the head needs to fit. The rest cannot. But the hair needs to fit. Okay, let's take it a bit. Okay. And that's it. Click enter again. And let's Put the opacity up and let's place this on top of everything and mask it. And now I'm gonna paint with black to hide what I don't want. There we go. And with a soft brush, I'm gonna erase the edges. I went a little bit too far here, so I'm gonna bring the hair back. And this is a little darker, so I'm gonna push the shadows a little bit there. And I'm gonna keep working on the mask, painting black to hide. The idea is for it to blend as natural as possible, and this is where we look for the edges. So this is an edge, so I'm gonna use that edge to create my mask. I'm gonna erase all the shadow, and I'm gonna use that edge the thing is the edge is too dark, so I'm gonna erase with a soft brush. There we go. Try to make it blend. That's way too harsh. I need to make that blend. I need to make this blend with this better. So I'm gonna transform it again. And make it fit. Let's play with the highlight there. Now that's better. Enter, and let's go closer. And I'm gonna mask with the hard edges right here. The important thing, when I say edges, I realize that that's just my personal way of calling this. When I say edges, I'm always talking about finding where like the flow cuts. Like, let me show you. I went too far with the zoom. Like here, see? Here I see a limit. That's why I need to find the edges. This limit, where this hair blends with the other hair. Then we can use that as a way of cheating this new hair into the other hair. Because if there is an actual end there, then anything can be behind it. So as long as you follow some kind of edge, the parts where the hair blends are gonna look natural. See? Let me see it closer. Here. See, I need to find the edge here. And everything else looks pretty natural. This was the finished. Okay, good. So now we went from this to this. I'm gonna check this closer just in case. Let's leave. There we go. So we don't have any suspicious hairs. Okay, and another thing I want to do is I want to make this part a little bit longer. So I'm gonna find the original of this image. Let's find it. That's number 86. And I'm gonna cut that the same hair that I have in the other one. And I'm gonna paste it in my new one because I made it smaller. I made the image smaller when I moved it the first time. So now I can use the same hair to make it longer. I can even transform it a bit. There we go. If it's just a little bit, then it's not gonna be noticeable in quality. There we go. But as a general advice, we don't do this. We don't make anything bigger. We make everything smaller. So I'm just doing the old do what I do as I say and not as I do. As long as it's a little fix, then it's fine. If it's a big change, then I wouldn't recommend it. There we go. Let's mask out this one and reinforce the edge. As long as you follow one edge, everything's gonna look really natural. Okay, let's go closer. Okay, it's a little done. Make sure we don't have two tattoos. There we go. No repeated patterns anywhere. Great. Let's keep going. So as far we went from this to this. We're already starting to get the wow effect. I really like the wow effect. So let's choose another image to bring hair from. No, I'm not done. Some flying hairs for the forehead up here. So maybe I can use this ones. Copy, paste. In this case, flip horizontal. There we go. And let's go to our full view with menus. There we go, because this is nicer. And let's mask it and mask out what we don't need. Very good. Bring back the edges. Let's make it match. if we make this fit with the rest of the hair, then it's gonna look real. Let's use a soft brush here and another one here. Yes, I don't like these ones. I'm losing them. Back. And now let's make everything a little darker. Not on the mask, on the actual layer. Curves. Let's drop the highlights a little bit. There we go. And now let's mask out I said, the edge. Let's remove this old hair, and now I'm gonna remove this one back up on top of everything. And now that I have the shape of hair that I want, actually this looks a little thick, so I'm gonna mask out here. I'm gonna push it exactly here. So it doesn't look as thick, still a little thick. No. And now that I have the shape that I want, I can start making the regular adjustments, like cloning on darken mode and cloning in hair. And actually this part I'm gonna fill it. So let's go back and look for another piece of hair. I like this one. Copy. Paste. There we go. Now I'm going to fill this part here. I'm going to transform it. Make it a little bigger. There. There. Now I'm going to mask it out. I'm going to mask out all the areas that don't go. Now I'm going to use a soft brush, 100% to erase the ear. The good thing is we have a deep shadow here, so everything's easier. Now we need to move it. Free transform. This should go here. Make it a little bigger. And I'm gonna make it a bit darker. There we go. There. Maybe I went a bit too far. No. So as you can see, there's nothing really magical about adding hair. It's just working on edges, making sure everything fits and nothing looks suspicious or out of place. It's like this highlight over here, it needs to continue. So if I don't place the new hair in the right direction and make the edges of the highlight match, then it won't work. It won't look real. And the same with this right here. So this hair needs to match with the other hair. So I'm gonna just erase a little bit of this to let the other one come through. Oh, it's too much. There. So now I can see the one from the bottom and here, because our hair isn't supposed to just end somewhere. Nothing can just end with no reason. Every hair that starts needs to end somewhere. So there should always be some kind of continuity. See, like here, I need to fill in that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just use this and use a bit of this, just smaller, so it's not noticeable. There. Now I can make it blend. There. Then I can make this part lighter. Now desaturate it a bit. Now let's see how it looks. And it's way too much. So I'm going to transform that. And I'm going to mask it out. Hide this. There we go. Looks great. And now I don't remember which hair with this one. Maybe it was the original. Let me see. No. No, that's the one from app. I think it's this one. My working file. Yes. So I'm gonna cut from the working file this bit. I'm gonna place it on top of everything because I want to use that. Then just I don't need this. Just need the tips. Yes, I'm erasing that. I just need that to fill in this tiny spot there. And I'm going to put it underneath the other adjustments. Now putting down. I'm going to protect the tones this time. And I'm going to mask it out. I'm going to mask it and just mask out this part with a hard brush. See? If I take good care of the edges, then it looks good. Okay, so now this is a little noticeable that it's the same. I can see this tip and this tip is exactly the same tip, so I'm gonna not use this one. Because it's too obvious. Now it's less obvious. Okay, but now that we have a full set of hair, let's see how it was, how it is, how it was, and how it is. I don't like the last bit that I added. This one, I don't like it because it gets too high, so I still need to fix that little inconsistency. I wish I knew which layer, that one. And duplicate it. There. It's not longer soft. I painted on the layer instead of the layer mask. Much better. Now let's mask out this. Okay. So there we have it. Our full working file. So now that everything is checked, that we don't have any weird endings anywhere, I'm just gonna do the same thing I did in the other image. I'm gonna just clone out flying hairs and oh, I still have this problem. Okay. I don't know if you can see it, but this is what we try to avoid. This area here. So let's see which one is the problem. This one is the problem. I'm gonna duplicate it to fill it more and just mask it out from the areas that actually did work. So I'm gonna mask it out from down here. I'm gonna just leave the duplicate up here to make it thicker. There we go. And now I like it. All of this, and let's call it composite. Okay. Let's remove the color. This is where we are, and this is where we were. And if we go even further, this is our original image. Okay, so let's keep going. The next thing I want to do before starting on the cloning is fix the color, because I have some hot spots of color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a gradient map. I'm going to choose the shadow tone and the highlight. It's just lighter for the highlights. I always cheat on the highlights. So I'm going to do a new adjustment layer, a gradient map. This is the same I did for the face. Oh, I'm gonna reverse it. There we go. It's a little bit dark, so I'm gonna do a curve on top of it. I'm gonna link it to my layer underneath, and I'm gonna push it. There we go. And now I'm gonna call this hotspots, and I'm gonna mask it out. And now I'm gonna use my gradient map to fix these hotspots. Let's go closer so I don't do anything wrong. See, I have the hotspots right there. Just use a small brush. I think it's too strong. I'm gonna use some of it for that part of the face too. Okay. I'm just gonna paint where I see that I have too much color. So this is gonna neutralize all the tones. There we go. Let's see before and after. I think the curves are a little bit too harsh, so I'm gonna turn that down. Okay, there we go. Now I like. So now that the hotspots are fixed, I'm gonna go ahead and do the cloning of the background to remove unwanted flying hairs, because it's nice to have flying hairs as long as it's the flying hairs that we want. So to do that, I'm gonna do the same thing I always do. I'm gonna just paint. I'm gonna sample the tones and I'm gonna paint over the background. So I can just keep the flying hairs that I do want. Okay, I found something. This is a really badly done mask. So let's go back to our composition. And this is one of the, this is the composition. This is this one. No. This one, or it's copy. Yes. So these two. Exactly. Okay. Let's blend this, group these two, and mask this out. There we go. There we go. Okay, now I can keep going. So I can draw or I can clone in the background. That's the same thing, as long as I'm not in darken mode. Okay. Same here. Let's make everything nice and even. Let's see if we have any. Okay, cool. And now let's drop the opacity to see what we are doing. I'm gonna erase instead of mask this time because I didn't paint a lot and the mask could eat some of my edges and I don't want to. So I'm just gonna erase anyways, very little that I want to erase. There we go. Okay. We could paint over the background a little bit to make tones a little more, maybe not in 100% opacity. There we go. And now remember always to add some noise to the added background. And blur it just a little bit. Okay. Okay, and now we can continue with our cloning and drawing. Cloning and drawing, always in empty layers on top of everything. Remember, the cloning is in darken mode to remove flying hairs, and the drawing is to make better blending between two hairs, or maybe to just even out texture. So first I'm gonna do the cloning. Zoom in. This is not, this doesn't have to be as precise as the other one, because since it's flying hair all around, then it's just the things that don't look good with most of the hair. But most of the flying hairs in this image get to stay. I'm just gonna remove the ones that really cut the flow, because if it doesn't add to the image, then it's not be in it. I need to add some noise to those eyelashes and blur them a little bit. They look a little bit drawn. So the same thing we did last time, the same thing I did. I keep saying we because I know you're gonna be watching. So the same thing I did last time with the other image, I'm doing it to this one. I'm just looking at the lighter hair that caught the eye and they seem they don't belong, and just removing them. Always making sure I'm following the original flow of the hair and without leaving repeating patterns, because that's what we want to avoid at all costs in all kind of images. That's the trait that says the retoucher has been here, and we don't want that unless it's a really good thing, like, oh, this was retouched by that person. Okay, let's go to the other side. I'm fishing for flying hair or any kind of unevenness of the texture. This time the drawing is gonna help us when if I find any area where I blended two different hairs that don't blend quite well, the drawing of new of fake hair is gonna help us with that. And it looks pretty good here. Let's remove this. If you remove the little flying hairs, then the hair's gonna look less dry, because those like dry ends are the things that look make the overall hair look drier. I don't know if I said this already, but sorry for my English. I never quite study English properly. I just picked it up from movies and books and music. So that's why, if you were wondering. There we go. Remember, we're not removing every flying hair, just we can also with cloning in darken mode we can fix things like this. Inconsistencies in texture or blurred parts. It did look better. I'm gonna just darken the shadows. I see it from the far. No, doesn't look. Yeah. So let's keep going. Fishing for flying hair. This one cuts the texture, so we fix it. There we go. This one. There we go. And here, this little one. And this too. As again, this is time consuming but completely worth it. Okay. Um, I was gonna say I'm done, but I'm not. So okay. Okay, and now I'm done. This could be better. Close the eye a bit. There we go. There we go. And now, okay, let's see this part. I don't like it from the far. See if I can even a little bit. There we go. Let's remove that. Let's use lighten. No, 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 no. Lighten. There we go. Also over here. Better. This, I don't know if you can see it. And I'm gonna fill in this. And a little bit here. There we go. Maybe this one's that cross. I think it's gonna be more complicated to get the right texture. Maybe at lower opacity, so it's not. I don't want it to look blur. Usually when you do it at low opacity, you make it blurry. That's why we avoid it. Let's use lighten again and leave it to remove this one. Okay. Oh, I'm not doing 100%. I'm not used to that. Okay. And now it's flawless. The last thing what I told you about the drawing is that you see in areas we used several different hairs like here. There was a part that I spotted before that didn't have continuity. See, some of these hairs, they don't go out of anywhere, so I'm just gonna continue them. Even if you think it's not affecting the whole image, sometimes it is. And just drawing a few hairs, like pushing a few highlights, can make all the difference because it looks like it's actually blending, and you cover up any mistakes you could have done. That's way too much. Making it smaller, you cover up any kind of mistake you could have made when making the composite. You make it blend by making up flying hairs, because if the flying hairs cross, then then it looks like it's actually just one image there, because no one's gonna imagine that you actually went out of your way and drawing flying hairs. It's a good cover up. So anywhere that you see that it might be useful to have flying hairs crossing over several areas, so it actually looks like it's part of the same image, then you do it. You cross flying hairs. Same here, we have very little texture, so I'm gonna just push the highlights to create some texture. When you're doing this, the trace needs to be the same, needs to follow like the shape of the actual hair. I'm not gonna use it at full opacity, remember that I'm gonna just erase the edges and make it softer and add some noise. Okay, let's just move this. Oops, too much. That's just because then I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use a big brush and erase the edges completely here. And now I'm gonna use lower opacity and keep. There we go. Now I'm gonna add some noise to the drawing here and blur them a little. Let's look at it close up. Before and after. Maybe it needs a little bit more noise and a little bit more blur. There we go. Let's zoom out. And let's look at our image. So it's pretty impressive, even if it's wrong that I say so myself. Okay, so let's create a new dodge and burn set. And two curves, one for darken and one for lighten. Let's invert the two curves and put them inside the group. Oh, this is the lighten. And this is the darken. So I'm gonna just darken this highlight over here because it cools the eye too much. And I'm gonna lighten the rest of it. I know it's a really nice highlight, but it doesn't match with the rest of the image, so I'm gonna just pull it down and then pull up these lights over here. So the highlight actually makes sense. Now it's some shine, so it's really shiny. The hair is really shiny. And then I'm gonna add an adjustment layer to desaturate all of this part. Just I'm gonna create here. There we go, and I'm gonna push the saturation down. I'm gonna remove that, and I'm gonna just drag. There we go. So the adjustment only applies where I lighten it. And let's see, from the far, I think I'm gonna just darken the edges a bit more. Of the whole image. And the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blend this little highlight over here a bit more, so it doesn't have such a contrast with the shadow right next to it. Zoom out a little because I went too far in. And let's paint a little shadow over it. Zoom out again. Much better. Now it doesn't call the eye so much. Okay, let's see. Let's check highlights and shadows. Maybe this one. Smaller. I can just clone there. There. And I can just, I'm gonna go use the history one step before. And I want to use the history brush. The history brush is the only way to just go back one step and not the, the full way. I don't use it a lot, but I use it. That's why I don't usually have the history there. Let's see, I can go back a bit. There we go. Okay, let's zoom out. See a full image. Now for the image to be completely and absolutely done, I want to address the issue of the breast that looks a little squish and a little baggy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and move on top of everything. I'm going to try and move this edge of the armpit up so it's smaller, and then join the boob and the back seamlessly to make it look less squish and more as a part of the body. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a copy merge of this area to make it smaller. Copy merge is gonna copy everything underneath like a stump. Command B or Control B to paste. And now I'm gonna transform this to make it smaller. And I'm gonna warp it to keep the angle. There we go. And click enter. And now I'm gonna create a mask, and I'm gonna mask out the edges so it's smooth. Just painting black over the edge. I want to keep this. And now what I need to do is I need to make this line disappear. So I'm gonna create another layer. I'm just gonna group these two and call it boob fix. There we go. This one is healing. I'm not gonna split it. I'm just gonna heal over it because I need to be able to heal not only texture but also this shadow out. So I need to do this in all layers. There we go. I don't want too much different texture. Better. Okay. And now I'm gonna use something that I didn't use before. I'm gonna do some healing of the edges. Oops, too much. I'm gonna do some healing of the edges, and I'm gonna fade this by clicking Command Shift F. I'm gonna fade it 50%. And now I'm gonna do the healing with the other texture, and I'm gonna fade this one too. Command or Control Shift F, so I can get a blending of the two textures. And now I'm gonna fix this too with Retouching and burning. So I'm gonna create a curve to lighten and another curve to darken. I can't do it on my original Dutch and Burn layer because I used different a copy merge of the layers. So now I need to work on top of everything. I'm inverting the masks. There we go. And now I'm gonna Dutch and Burn to make all the shadows and highlights blend better. I'm gonna group this. I'm gonna group this too. Call this Dutch and Burn. Okay, I went a little bit too far on the darken here. Let's zoom out. Yeah, I went a little bit too hard on the darken there. Just painting with black to hide it. There we go. And the shadows, as always, are turning too saturated, so I'm gonna create a new adjustment layer, desaturation, on top of my Dutch and Burn. Here, to desaturate it, and I'm gonna just drag the lighten mask. There we go. Let's see it from the far. Let's see the whole boob fix. I should smooth out this line. go. I'm gonna create another hue saturation, but I'm gonna replace the mask with my darken. Yes, it's too much. Push it down. Just work on the reds. There we go. Let's keep touching and burning a little more. Over here. And this little line in the middle. Okay, and let's see the boob again. I need to fix this shadow too. Back to the dodge and burn and lighten this edge of the shadow over here. Let's go in. There we go. I'm liking it better. Basically, what I wanted to do is I wanted to avoid the really deep cut between the boob and the back and just make it more natural and less squished. I'm gonna do in I'm gonna create a new one. I'm gonna call it cloning because I'm gonna do a little cloning right here to eliminate this light. Normal mode, sampling all layers. There we go. Just let's hide this. And let's look at the before and after of the boob fix. Now it's not so harsh. Could make this darker though, because it's still a really noticeable change here between the highlight and the shadow of the boob. So I'm gonna just darken this area. There we go, too much. There we go. Now it's completely smooth. The transition between the shadow and the light there is completely smooth. See it? Okay, and now I'm happy with it. Let's see our final before and after of the image. This is our final image. And let's go down. And this is our before. Let's move it a little bit. After and before.